Excellent. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us at the Diversity Consortium's XBE Thrive series. I want to welcome everyone today. I appreciate you joining us. Today we're going to be talking about shared services. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we start. We're using Teams today to do this webinar. So you'll see on your right-hand side the chat functionality. There's going to be some question and answer session here and a couple of survey questions. So if you can just type into that space any questions that you may have or any contributions you have in terms of questions. We'll be recording this session, so you'll make sure we'll make sure that we get a copy of the recording for your future reference. The DC, its mission is to work with the entire spectrum of supplier diversity, working with corporations to help organizations calibrate or develop their strategies, and working with the disadvantaged enterprises across the country to increase their capacity and increase the volume of business that they do. Our mission in that is to improve the landscape of supplier diversity, hoping to grow both the corporate performance and the meeting of their commitments and obligations into that space, and building the businesses and the communities in which we all work, play, and live. Today, we're going to be spending some time in our service line of shared services. The Diversity Consortium deals about 25 different service lines, about half of which are to the corporate customer, we call upmarket, dealing with strategy and outreach and onboarding of XBEs into the organization. And the term XBE we're going to use a fair bit today. The idea of diverse business enterprises of all type, whether it be preference or gender or minority or ethnic background. So we call that X. So you're going to hear us talk about it a lot. So in terms of XBEs, how to manage those and report them, as we look at the down market or to the diverse business enterprises themselves, those XBEs, we have a variety of services around capacity development and training. We have financing and business opportunity, along with some other functions like the XBE health plan or financing. So today is shared services, so hopefully you enjoy the content of the day too. We've got a handful of partners that are joining us and have contributed to the content today. So these people are the folks, or these organizations are the folks that help us to understand and help our membership see the way through to maybe alternating or handling their shared service in slightly a different way than they have in the past. We do have a couple of panelists today that I want to introduce you. Emily Hack is from Insperity, and Randall Dobbins is with Diversity Works. Both will be joining us and lending their expertise. They're super knowledgeable in the space, and they're going to spend a lot of time talking to us about the content of shared services, and particularly that area of human resources. So let me turn it over to Emily, and you can tell us a little bit about Insperity, and then Randall, your organization as well.
Hi guys, my name is Emily Hack. I'm district manager for Insperity in the Carolinas, and we've been around for 35 years now, founded back in '86. We have just over 80 offices across the country, and so therefore employ or co-employ businesses across all 50 states and really offer HR that makes a difference. We want to help you figure out how to attract top talent, how to contain costs on benefits, how to offload some of that administrative duty, and overall shift some risks so that you're not worried about what you don't know that you don't know, and at the end of the day, help you grow and be the best business you can be. I love this shared services model because it's really taking those XBE companies and taking them to another level, connecting them with corporate clients. And the idea, and I think Randall's about to go into it more, was to figure out how do we make sure that you guys have all the best resources to make you successful as you continue upon your existing growth and really catapult to a new trajectory. But Insperity's been around for a while. I think last year we tapped off at about 4.5 billion in revenue. So we're established. We went public in '97. You can check us out on the New York Stock Exchange under NSP. It's one of my favorite stocks. But I'll pass it over. Randall, tell us about shared services.
Thank you, Emily, and I am so glad to be presenting with you today. Welcome, everyone. My name is Randall Dobbins. I am the founder and president of Diversity Works. We are a wholly owned subsidiary of Dobbins International, which has been in existence since 2004. We are the #1 provider of corporate contracts education to the diverse business owners. It's based on the work that I've done as a corporate buyer, as a corporate national accounts executive, as a small business owner, and as a trainer for the last 16 years to diverse business owners looking to up-level their skills, specifically to land the 5, 6, 7, 8 8-figure multi-year contracts with the Fortune 500. In doing this work, some of the vast majority of complaints that we get from small business owners such as yourself is that you spend more time working in your business rather than own your business. And the vast amount of time that you spend is doing what we call back of the house or back office functions. And if we're going to put a stake in the ground and just be candid with one another, the thing that is potentially limiting your business, your ability to do business with the Fortune 500 or the Fortune 1000 is the perception around your scalability. I want to be more precise about that. Can you and your business handle the contract if Walmart or Dell or Ford or General Motors or someone else gave it to you? Do they believe you can handle it? And are you as seamless in handling it as your larger competitor? If the answer is yes, you got a better than 50-50 chance of getting the contract. If the answer is no, you will fall into that range of 90% of small business owners that fail in this market. That's why this topic of shared services is vitally important. If we can go to the next slide that speaks to the agenda that we're going to cover.
And Randall, it looks like we lost Emily. So Jim, if you can go ahead and can you reshare your presentation? And if she joins, we'll bring her back in. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
No worries. And so what we're going to talk about is what precisely is shared services. What are some of the challenges? We're going to talk quite a bit about what Emily is bringing to us with regard to Insperity and the exciting, wonderful opportunities that Insperity brings to the table. And we're going to talk about some of the common employer-related challenges and how to reduce turnover to increase your profits. So with that, let's talk about what is shared services. And basically, just a quick recap, it is the consolidation of business operations that are typically used by most all organizations. And when we talk about shared services, we're talking about we're looking at shared services as being cost efficient because it centralizes your back office operations. It is typically used by multiple divisions of the same company, and the idea is you do this to reduce redundancy. Today, we're seeing within the Fortune 1000, a lot of companies are employing shared services model for finance, human resources, marketing, and information technology. And I want to be a bit more precise about this. What we are seeing is that there are, for the Fortune 500, there are players like Accenture, IBM Global Solutions, Deloitte, and other folks who the Fortune 250 are actually contracting with to move their internal HR, finance, procurement, IT, and other functions to third parties to actually manage for them. It represents a huge cost savings for them. For our XBE market, they are too expensive. You don't have that much infrastructure currently built to have a third party come in and take over 2,000 employees with about $250, $300 million worth of spend. So where shared services becomes really attractive for us as XBEs is if we get help with finance, HR, procurement, and IT. And as you look at this is where a bulk of our time goes. Just think about how quickly we could actually double or triple our business if we aren't straddled with having to learn and become experts in all of these, in all of these areas, in these 4 areas precisely. So with that being the case, I want to do a quick survey. Go ahead and type in the chat right now. When it comes to the back of house or back office functions, what's consuming the most time in your business? And we can go to the next slide. When it comes to your business right now, what is the biggest challenge you currently have in your back of house functions?
So Randall, this is an interesting question as you ask it, and we give everybody a chance to kind of type it into their chat section. In our world, the idea of HR and probably the skill sets of IT, which is it seems like an ever-changing world, right? Technology is growing, and our reliance on it is more and more every day. I.e., this conference call that we're on today, we lost one of the participants. I'm not sure why, but is always a challenge. So certainly in our world, that's true.
Well, and I appreciate that, Jim. Thanks for sharing. And I do want to say that, for those of you that are listening in on this, we do know that while today we're talking about HR and all of that encompasses, that additionally, one of your largest expenses is real estate. Do you currently have space? Are you looking for space? So forth and so on. And we definitely are looking to cover that as part of shared services as well. But moving on, I am so excited to be able to share time with my co-presenter here, Miss Emily Hack with Insperity. And Emily, tell us a bit more about how great companies are built on great people and great culture.
Thank you, Randall. Randall and I in the room together, it's like breathing positivity and happiness. I had the treat of Randall flying over to Charlotte. I'm here in Charlotte, North Carolina, a couple weeks ago, and it was just a joy to see how we both have very similar passions and desires to make this work and make it work for all of your companies. But today, really, what I want to talk to you about is taking care of your people. Great companies are built on great people and great culture. Me personally, I have a film degree. If you told me 20 years ago that I would be this passionate about human resources and talking to people all day long about benefits and payroll and government compliance, I would tell you are probably nuts. But it's because I really, can you go back a slide, Jim? Love small business. It's you guys who are driving our economy, employing people, hiring those people and supporting the families behind them. So what I want to talk about today is how you get the most out of your largest asset in your company. That is your people. Back in my film days, I did work for Sony Pictures and thought I knew quite a bit about HR because I built, different divisions inside of their home entertainment division. But every time I hired a new team, it was like, poof, everything just happened because I had the 4th floor, the HR department, right? And all those forms and policies and procedures were just already done for me. It's not exactly how it works in small business, right, guys? We all wear a few more hats and have to figure out how to be experts in more areas than we really ought to be focused on. So first, I wanted to talk about human resources and that wheel that shows what comes up involved in HR and what, if you had the liberty of having an HR department, what it should really do for you. And first and foremost, we want to protect the company. Don't get fined or sued unnecessarily, right? But if the last 18 months has shown us anything, it's like, wow, what government regulation is up next? And do I know about it? Or am I Googling things? What do people feel about returning to work? How do I get them back into the office? Or do I have to, have a hybrid work environment? What do we do about vaccines? I mean, HR was a huge issue before this pandemic world. And now as we're post-pandemic or maybe still in it, we're still navigating all sorts of things that are unknown. So to have a partner who's focused on those types of issues, hopefully can help you sleep better at night, not as worried about what you're missing or how the impacts of decisions where you felt like you were rolling the dice may hit you down the road as we approach unknowns. So first, protect the company. Second, an HR team should help with all of those administration, the business of being in business. How do we onboard people? How do we pay them? Employees these days feel as it's a right that they have this glorious benefits package. So how do you offer employee benefits that don't break the bank? And then third, which is my favorite part of HR, is getting the right people in the right jobs fired up to be there. How do you find those people? How do you attract those people to begin with? But then once you get them in the door, how do you play on that momentum of how they're excited about their new job? How do you help them understand their expectations? How do you train and develop them? How do you then hold them accountable? How do you relay the mission and vision of the company and what the goals of the company are and make sure that they feel valued in what their role is in meeting that goal and how they're rewarded and potentially promoted or have a future with the company? So it's really exciting to see how a people strategy can really impact the level of success of a company. Again, take care of your people, they'll take care of your business. So you may be, especially if you get some of these huge contracts, at a crossroads. Most of the companies on this call have already experienced a good level of success. So I'm not here to say that you don't have the basics of HR needs, but the question may be, is it time for us to up our game in that arena a little bit? Do we need to further build out our HR infrastructure, or potentially is it time to bring on an HR partner in another company that really focuses on that so that you can focus on your customer needs and delivery of your own product? So I'd like to talk about outsourcing HR and human resources. When people say I do HR, I'm like, what does that mean to you? Because it's such a very broad, mile wide, mile deep kind of term. But when it comes to outsourcing human resources, I think there's 4 key benefits that I want to talk about just to simplify it in general. First is
Emily, let me ask you a question on that previous slide for our listeners here. From your perspective, what usually are the indicators that somebody's actually at that crossroad? How do you know when you're there? How much hair have you had to pull out? Do you get like me where it's completely all gone? How do you know when you're at that crossroad?
A lot of times, when I started in Insperity, I've been with Insperity 8 years, and before healthcare reform, it was kind of like, maybe it was around 15 or 20 employees and you're crossing that threshold and you're no longer hiring your family and your best friends, and there's all these people issues and there's more to take care of than you want on your day-to-day. But after healthcare reform, we've had people outsourcing HR with as few as 5 employees because they want access to larger pooling of medical benefits. So there's some folks that kind of run that road down that car down the road 90 miles an hour without building out till they get to 50 employees, and they say, oh shoot, this is way bigger than I thought. And that's when we kind of step back and say, okay, let's rebuild, let's slow down to go faster. So there's many different pivotal points in the stage of a business where you're taking it to the next level for one reason or another, but a lot of times it's based on growth.
Gotcha. So that, and it might be time for the receptionist to stop screening resumes and get back to doing reception work. That too might be an indicator.
Yes, or I love Excel spreadsheets. They are my friend. I use them a lot, but really for tracking employee management, it's not the best way of tracking time or tracking hours or pay and things like that. So really getting out and taking it to a more sophisticated model.
Or what's the Jeff Foxworthy model? You might need to consider HR outsourcing when you get that first phone call from the Workforce Commission or the EEOC.
Oh goodness, let's avoid those.
Let's avoid those.
Oh,
I'm
Randall.
sorry to interrupt, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, that plays right into, how do you best manage risk? The best way to handle it is to give it to somebody else, right? In a shared risk model, you want to have an HR partner who's handling those employee relations questions that maybe you've never heard before. If there are EEOC investigations, trying to do the research and mediation and reporting on that regards, keeping up with government compliance. I know that in our hybrid workforce, there's a lot of people working remote and therefore moving into different states. And so there's a lot of companies that were once all in one state that are now immediately multi-state with all sorts of different multi-state compliance to keep in touch with. We want to, from an HR partner standpoint, help you with a safety program so that things are buttoned up. You're not too worried about a visit from OSHA, or hopefully we're avoiding workers' comp accidents. But in the case of that happens, managing that coverage and claims management and overall unemployment, the list of things from a shared risk perspective goes on and on. But that's the first benefit. Second one being administrative offload, and we talked about that a little bit. Let's get systems in place that are efficient and accurate. From onboarding and payroll and time and attendance, a performance management tool that doesn't take that supervisor who has a dozen direct reports 1 million hours to do, and people that help you understand and use the systems best. So that's the administrative offload. So again, you can go back on the focus of why you are in business and how you're supporting your client. The third benefit is access to big company benefits. I mentioned this earlier, but with Insperity, I wish I could say we had some kind of magic globe or wand or something when we formed in the 80s to know that healthcare reform was coming. But we did start 35 years ago pooling all of our corporate employees and client employees onto one master medical plan. So when healthcare reform hit and everyone went scrambling for associations, we kind of had a happy accident. We said, oh, well, we already did that. So we have a master health plan that already has 300,000 lives on it. It's very different when you go to a healthcare provider with 300,000 lives than 25 lives. Maybe 25 people with 17 electing. You don't get as many options, and the plans, while they're not as rich, they're also probably more expensive. So how do we get you out of that game? For the small business leader, I would say I have lovely friends that are brokers, but for our size businesses, that brokered model is quite frankly broken. So we want to get you out of that and into another option that, like I said before, won't break the bank or get out of control with, you see the broker coming every year and they're like, here's your watered down plan, or here's your hiked up price, or maybe both. So let's get out of that game and look at an overall comprehensive benefits package, including dental, 401k, life, personal accident insurance, you name it, HSA, disability. So bringing that big company benefits to the smaller organizations. And then finally, and I think most importantly, the dedicated HR team. If you want to take care of people, you have to have people that are talking to people, and really having that strategy. I know there's that nice to-do list that all small business owners have, and some of the cultural initiatives and the recruiting strategies, and really get to revised job descriptions and checking out comp. Those may be on the nice to have, but hey, we've got a deliverable. So we want to have our team take some of those things off of your to-do list that would be nice to have, that would make your company better and potentially increase revenue, and have a support team that can actually make them happen. Update those handbooks, do some of the blocking and tackling, getting onboarding and offboarding procedures done well so that those don't come back to haunt you as well. Any questions overall on these 4 things before we move on to talking about HR delivery?
Well, one of the things that hit me, Emily, and I think it was in some of the legislation that California had last year, because I know it had an impact on my business, and kind of thinking through what actually do I need to do. I know they I don't know that they got rid of the whole idea of 1099 employees, but they said, I think it was, they didn't actually refer to it as the Uber or Lyft law, but it's like, they kind of blurred the lines between an employee and a contractor. And it's like, how do you actually deal with risks in like that? How does that play into your HR delivery models? What do you do when you get thrown things like that your way?
Yeah, well, really, all of that legislation, God bless them, thankfully we have 3,500 employees. We feel very boutique and high touch in each of our markets, but there's a really large engine at our corporate office in Kingwood, Texas, where there's 40 to 50 people that track government compliance. And as those things in California change, and New York requires all sorts of diversity and inclusion training above and beyond the crazy amount of training they used to have, and Ohio has monopolistic workers' comp, and Pennsylvania does everything different in every township that they work in, so we could go on and on and on about all the multi-state compliance. But as anything changes, I remember one of my clients was mostly in California and Tennessee. I got a ping from the COE, Center of Excellence, that said, hey, you need to let X company know Arizona changed their paid sick leave policy. We can update their handbook and let them know. And I was like, wait, Arizona? And they did have one remote employee out of their 105 employees that was over in Arizona. So we updated their handbook for that type of thing. So having an engine that's more than one person or someone having to keep up with that legislation makes it so you can expand and confidently expand into any state that your employees want to live without worrying of what's going to fall out the bottom.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Thanks for that.
Yeah. So I think, Jim, if you just want to kind of click, there's a lot of transition on this slide, so just keep clicking until it all shows up. But this slide is basically talking about 3 different HR models. And the first showing up is the traditional HR model. And in the dotted line here, that's talking about risk. And below the dotted line is, in that model, for this traditional one, the risk of all of this business administration stays on the business owner. You may have in traditional, you may have a payroll vendor, a workers' comp agent, a medical broker, maybe a training portal or company that you hire, all sorts of vendors that come together and help you, but it's still really on you to make sure that all of the pieces of HR and all of that risk and liability is taken care of. Insperity actually does have a traditional HR delivery model called workforce acceleration, where instead of having 4, 5, 6, 7 vendors, it does compile it all into one stop shop. It's a very nice HRIS technology, but still the risk lies on you to use the technology and to call us when you need us with the right questions. On the far end of this graph, you have staffing or employee leasing. And you mentioned 1099s, Randall, but for staffing or employee leasing, you're actually giving your employees to another company, and they are taking all that risk and the control over the employees, and basically they're leasing them back to you to do whatever job, right? You have to be careful with those 1099s because it is us small business owners that become the target for the government's scrutiny on whether you really are a 1099 or a W-2. So be careful in that arena. But what I wanted to focus on a good bit today is this co-employment model, or PEO, which stands for Professional Employer Organization. And that's when we are really shoulder to shoulder in sharing the risk while you still maintain direction and control. You are the primary employer. You have right to hire, fire, make all decisions. But that risk that shift to us is in administering the taxes, sponsoring your insurances like workers' comp and benefits, doing that HR blocking and tackling and strategy, and overall trying to make all those pieces work together so that there's cost containment overall. Workforce optimization is Insperity's PEO. We actually founded the industry back in the 80s, but there are like 900 PEOs. So if you explore PEOs, they don't all function exactly the same. So a lot of other PEOs may still have brokered health insurance instead of a master plan. They may do the same with workers' comp. Some of the liability may shift on you. Most PEOs do a good job with taxes and basic compliance. But like I said, not all PEOs are exactly the same, so I can't speak to all 900 of them in a presentation here. So, like I said, HR is such a large bucket. And I can't go through all the things, especially the most recent things that are challenges from an employer perspective, but I did list a few, like low job satisfaction, lack of positive company culture, lack of growth, poor benefits or compensation, or poor leadership, heaven forbid. And I know a lot of these, like when you say the word culture, you think it's fluffy or an intangible, or like benefits. Oh, it's the United States, can't fix that, But with an HR partner with a lot of expertise and experience in these arenas, we have very tactical ways that we approach these kind of problems. For low job description, low job satisfaction, let's look at the job descriptions. Let's look at the mission and vision of the company. How are we tracking their performance? How are we setting expectations? If there's low job satisfaction, a lot of the times they may not be challenged or understand what they're supposed to do or enjoy the people that they're working with. And that goes to the positive company culture. How do we create an intentional culture, not just look back and say, oops, that happened? What are we doing on communication and transparency of our why, our mission and vision, and the ultimate goal of the company, and how each employee plays a role into the level of success that company has, and how they're rewarded back and recognized for that role that they play. Lack of growth, really helping to design a specific curriculum to meet future and current goals for an employee. Get each of those employees functioning at their best, and look at succession planning. Where are we heading? Who are we going to need? What departments do we need to build out? And where are we going to get those people? Poor benefits and compensation, that's one of those things that, in my world is an easy check. Please, if that's the main struggle for you, please come join us. We'd love to show you a new way of really looking at the marketplace, looking at your industry. What do folks at your pay rate, at your industry level expect. You know, what are your competitors offering from a benefits perspective? What are they offering on comp? If they move to different areas in the country, how does that change? We can very easily run compensation surveys to help you know where you are for your revenue level, the low, median, and high, and help develop bonus structures or potential compensation strategies for sales or whatnot. And then when it comes to leadership, there is never been a time in my lifetime that middle management was as important as it is now. To really manage this new workforce, whether it's hybrid or just very opinionated workforce of how they want to live and breathe and do life with you and with the company. So really taking a look at ourselves. And if we do a culture survey, take true heart to that feedback and understand where there are areas of improvement and trying to find the resources to improve and grow leaders.
I want to jump in for a second right there, Emily, because one of the things that, I think everyone on this call knows it, but a lot of times we don't think about it, is our organizations are a mere reflection of who we are as leaders. If we are very professional and very organized, then every touch point and every interaction that a customer or anyone has with our organization is going to reflect that. And if we individually aren't, that's going to be reflected as well. So when you talk about the culture, when you talk about all of that, when we start thinking about the investments that we make and how we want that to play out and how we want to make sure that our investment in people and everything else gets us to where we want it to be, the question becomes, do we as the owners or we as the leaders in the business, have we set the right culture? Have we set the right tone? Are we making the right investments? Are we trying to be the place where when people wake up in the morning, they want to come to work?
Right. And I tell people all the time, and I get a lot of shocked expressions when I say I hope to retire at Insperity. It's an incredible company. I'll never leave. Recruiters reach out to me all the time. And I love it when recruiters reach out to folks on my team. Tara's on the line here. She's a business performance advisor for us. And she gets recruited regularly because she's fantastic. And the way that she talks about Insperity, because of how well they do by her and her clients, what is it that your employees are saying when they're on the soccer field or the football field at parents' night? They're like, hey, I heard you got a new job, or hey, what do you do for a living? What are they saying about your company? And how does that impact your brand in the community, your brand amongst your customers, and your brand against potential new hires and the people who you already have in the building? And I mean, it's a great transition to this slide, which is talking about reducing turnover. Randall, it feels like you wanted to say something before I keep going. No, you good? But when you reduce, turnover is expensive. If anybody doesn't believe that, here's my cell phone number, call me later. I will run the digits on you. It is expensive. Let's hire the right people and keep them. And when you put these HR practices in place to really establish the right culture and the right way of taking care of your people, you can reduce that turnover, whatever level you have year over year. This is just one example of a company with 40 employees and 5 million in revenue that increased from 500 to 692K in profit in 2 years just by reducing that turnover rate from 20 to 16 to 12. So, I wish there was a calculator that said, taking care of your people improves your bottom line, but I will tell you it does. And the proof is in seeing that traction and investing in your people and watching that investment grow. These are a few stats about PEOs in general. That was one of the 3 HR delivery models that I mentioned, but growth rate for companies that have a PEO is 10% higher than businesses that don't. The turnover rate is substantially lower, 10 to 14% less. And the biggest one, 50% less likely to go out of business from one year to the next. I know there's that transition of no man's land where you're too big to be small and you're too small to be big. And it's a very important transition that you make. And we don't want to be in that no man's land and die. We want to project past that. Next slide, Jim. This a little bit of a plug for Insperity. This is Pulsar Body. He is our founder and fearless leader. It's not very often that 2 guys and a card table and 1 phone line start a company, and you're still leading it 35 years later. And we went public in '97 and lots of different investors, and you guys know well enough that it's very difficult for one man to make it all the way through all of those transitions to be the size company that we are, and he's still founder and CEO. But I truly agree that no one is going to be able to rival the breadth and depth of our services and level of care. And I'm just thankful to be invited to be part of this diversity consortium group, to really champion you all and your success and your future growth. And if we can be a part of it, we'd love to talk to you about any kind of delivery model or HR solution that could be beneficial for you. So I believe we have some time for question and answers. Any questions above and beyond Randall? But Randall, do you have some more?
Well, Jim, I'm going to toss back to you here.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a reminder to those that are on the call, you can type any question in your chat. We have a producer that is kind of going through them. Christopher, do we have any questions that have come in?
Yeah, first one is, how do I evaluate the need for shared services?
So Randall, do you want to take that?
I can take that. I'll give a concise answer. What I'm going to say is more along the lines of, it's not an issue whether or not you have a need for shared services. If you're probably well over 100 million, 200, 500 million in revenue, you probably have enough money to fund getting experts that can drive this process for you. So you're probably not the folks that even though this does have some, it does have a lot of benefit for you, because if you recall, I mentioned earlier, the Fortune 100 are investing in shared services. But your issue isn't so much that you like the expertise to do it when you're at that level. The issue is whether or not are you getting the best value for your investment dollar. And the school is still out amongst the Fortune 500, the answer there. If you are the typical XBE somewhere between 5 and 20 million, this really and truly is a no-brainer. And the point of it is, you 2 things. You're getting expertise at a lower cost than you can do internally, and you're getting a breadth of expertise. But with regard to what the diversity consortium and the shared services group are trying to make sure that we support you in doing, which is doubling and tripling your business, then what shared services does for you is it increases your scalability 10x almost overnight. You are not simultaneously trying to figure out how to build a house and get the bricks. The bricks are standing there waiting for you. That's what shared services is. It's a warehouse of bricks. So all you have to focus on is, what is this house I'm building, and how do I go about building it? That's all you have to focus on. And so this really and truly hasn't been available in the market, especially on the scope and scale that we're seeing nowadays. And your ability to know that everything that you need behind you is addressed. You've got professionals. They're they're dotting the I's, they're crossing the T's. They're dealing with your information technology. They're dealing with your real estate. They're dealing with your HR. They're dealing with all these other different things so that you literally and truly can just focus on driving the business, growing sales, increasing your customer service and delivery model. And then when you get called into big contracts with the government or big contracts with the Fortune 500, and people want to understand what's behind you, what are your operating procedures and processes? Are they documented? Are you compliant? Will doing business with you put them at risk, put their business at risk? They see behind you what looks almost like their own business, and that gives them a lot more confidence that you can handle the contract just like your larger competitors. So I know that's a little bit of a longer answer, but I think for me, it isn't an issue of what are the considerations here. The issue is, why haven't you done this already?
Well, that's a great answer, Randall. And I know as we have tried to understand the capabilities and the need for shared services, watching people that maybe are maturing their staffs through their capabilities or their exposure has been a big issue, right? It's I've got people and I like having my own people, but I need a CFO, but I only need a CFO for 4 hours a month. It's hard to go out and spend 6 figures and sometimes mid 6 figures with someone with that capabilities. So the ability and what you said about the breadth and the depth of experience is a huge one here.
Well,
So
and,
Chris,
and like you said, Jim, you don't have to give up equity to get somebody on the cheap to bring them in as a CFO or all of these other different things.
oh, you're absolutely right. Christopher, any other questions?
There are a few questions, but we don't have time to answer them, so we'll answer them in the chat and get them back in the Q&A report.
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone who's joined us today, we're going to make available to you a recording here for all the questions that didn't get answered. We'll have an answer session. We'll respond to them all, and we'll distribute to it in an email fashion so that you can see all questions and all answers. I want to thank both Emily and Randall for joining us today. As a part of our XBE Thrive series, we do these webinars on a monthly basis. The XBE Thrive, which is on a monthly, and it's on different topics. The next one that's coming up is on the power of certification, and it's September the 30th at 1 p.m. Eastern. You guys can go to our website and register for that. We'd love to have you, and of course, we've got them every month going on to the end of the year, and they'll publish a new schedule for 2022 a little bit later in the year. This was the shared services micro topic session, and we do this session and 9 others on a monthly basis, and they're more specific in technology and marketing and so on. You'll also see those on our website, which is thediversityconsortium.com. Go to the events page and you can sign up right there. As Randall talked about shared services, this is really the Diversity Consortium trying to help our XBE stakeholders in the areas of back of house administration. How do I get the right capabilities, the right capacity at the right price? So you can go on to the website and they'll talk a little bit more about how this offering is played and the participants that help us do it. I want to thank both Emily and Randall for being here. It was a super informative session. For everybody that took time to talk to us today, we thank you very much. We look forward to continue to bring you content and knowledge to help you run your business, and we wish you all the best. If you'd like, you can reach out to the Diversity Consortium at thediversityconsortium.com. The phone number's here. Rob Travia feels so solidly about it. He gives you his mobile number and his email. Emily Hack's information is right here, so please feel free to reach out to her as well. Want to thank everybody and have a wonderful day. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, Jim.